friends, we are here for the third attempt for our lunchtime live. It is now exactly 1 hour from the time I first started this. And I apologize if you were on for the earlier, for part one. I'm going to leave it up just because we had started having a conversation and I had to break. I am filming from my phone and I had a phone call coming in that was really important. So I had to take it. So I apologize that I had to come off the live, but we are back to continue with part two. So if you are watching in the playback, which I will leave up on my channel later, if you're watching this first, then maybe you want to stop and go back and watch part one. And if you don't, then I'll try to recap you just a little bit what we were talking about in the earlier discussion. But thank you so much for being here. If this is your first time joining, hi, I'm Karen. This is Runwright Reads. You have stumbled upon a bookish space. If that was not your intention, then I'm going to encourage you to stick around anyway and see if I say something that will make you want to stick around. We talk about books, but we also talk about other things because books are life. And so a lot of what I know came from reading. I have a lot of my bookish conversations using media, using print. So whether it's written in a book or written in a text with my bookish friends, get a lot of my information from reading. So books are life. Books are life. And so we talk about books, we talk about life around here. Thank you so much for joining. So in the earlier part of our conversation, before I had to pause, I was telling you about this book, King and the Dragonflies by Kaysen Callender. And I was sharing that I got this from a little free library yesterday. And I stumbled upon the little free library on my morning walk. And I saw this book. It's a brand new copy. It is by Caribbean author because the author is from the United States Virgin Islands, St. Thomas of the USVI, which is in the Caribbean. And here on my channel, as well as other parts of my social media presence, I try to promote Caribbean books. So when I see a book by a Caribbean author, I definitely want to read it. So I was of two minds when I saw this book. Should I leave it for someone else to stumble upon and pick up a book by a Caribbean author? I thought about that and I said, well, it is a brand new copy in a little free library that is probably being managed by the school, which tells me that they probably have other copies of this book. So I felt like it wouldn't be inappropriate for me to take it. I feel like I'm not robbing the rest of the rest of the audience by taking this one. But when I'm finished reading it, I will pass it on. I won't keep it just because it came from a little free library. I won't keep it, but it might take me a little while to read it. So what I intended to do was that when I went back to the little free library to drop off a book that I felt would be kind of equal in some of the characteristics that this book presents. So Kaysen Callender is a Caribbean author, so I wanted to leave a book that was also by a Caribbean author. This book is written for a young audience. I wanted to also leave a book that had young characters. I don't know exactly, at the time, I wasn't sure exactly, but I'm thinking now that this is a middle grade book. But I wasn't thinking middle grade when I was thinking younger audience. I was kind of thinking more teen audience. So wanted to have a Caribbean book with younger characters, teen appropriate, and be in new condition. Did I mention that this is a brand new book? I love it. It doesn't even have, like, sometimes you get books, sneak peek. Sometimes you get books that have this little mark on the bottom. A lot of the overstock books, like the book I just showed you, I think came from Book Outlet. They have that little mark that tells you that they've been marked down. So they're not brand new books. This is a brand new book. There are absolutely no markings on it. So I wanted to leave a book in the little free library that would be what I consider to be equal to this. And so I looked on my shelves and I came up with this one, which is The Star Side of Bird Hill by Naomi Jackson. Naomi Jackson is an American author, but her family is from the Caribbean. I think they are Bayesian. or at least one of her parents is from Barbados. And this book has a dual setting. We are reading about two sisters, and they start off in New York, but then they are sent to Barbados for what seems to be a short vacation, like a summer vacation, but there is no date for when they're supposed to return. And so they kind of find themselves in this Caribbean country with a Caribbean background, but not a specific Caribbean experience. And it's about them trying to figure out how they are going to assimilate in this new, but what should be their inherited culture. And I find this book to be just so representative on so many levels. I read this several years ago, but it's a book that I have thought about frequently because it is something that I think happens to a lot of children of immigrants, where their parents talk about a place so much that even though they've never visited, they've never been to those countries, the country of their parents' birth, their parents' original country and background, it seems to be kind of thrust upon them to the point where other people think that they are of that country and of that culture, but it's it's still a little foreign to them. So I take for example my own life. I grew up in Jamaica. I live in New York City. My daughter is American because this is where she has been born. This is where she's been raised. This is where her friends are. Her life, a lot of her life is here. I try to take my daughter back to Jamaica at least once a year so she will have an appreciation of Jamaican culture, Jamaican experience, Jamaican language, Jamaican food. I want her to also be, in some respects, dual of dual heritage, because I want her to know and appreciate that culture. But if I didn't do that, she wasn't, whether she visits Jamaica or not, she is not distinctly Jamaican. It would be very difficult, maybe not very difficult, but it would be a transition for her to be sent to Jamaica. Um, be sent to Jamaica for some extended period. And everybody just assumes that she is now Jamaican. Like, it's a big transition no matter what point of your life you move country. So this book deals with some of that, and we see this young girls, like teenage girls, navigating that identity, um, where they're facing this big change in their family circumstances and being away from the people that have been their family and support system for a long time. So when I say they're sent to Barbados in this book, the teenage girls are sent to stay with a grandmother that they do not know, and neither their mother nor father are there with them. That's a huge transition no matter where they were sent. If they had been sent down the street to live with someone that also they had never met, had maybe heard about but had never met, it would be no less different. But also add to that they're in a strange country, a place that they've never visited. As a matter of fact, in the synopsis, they use the word exile. These two girls, they're 10 and 16. They're exiled from Brooklyn to Bird Hill in Barbados because their mother has had some change in her situation and she can't care for them. So I thought that this was such a profound read. I read it several years ago and I've been thinking about it ever since. And so I wanted to swap this for this in the little free library. But when I went back to the little free library today on my walk to go drop it in, hi guys. I see your messages in the chat. Chad says you look like Eric Andre. I'm not sure who that is, but thank you. Thank you so much for joining. If this is your first time, if you're new here, oh, you mean Eric Carl Anderson? Is that who you're talking about? He reads all the books. Yes, he does. Lonesome Reader, is that who you are referring to? I haven't watched any of his videos in a little bit, but yeah. Lost my train of thought. So I was saying about this. So I went back to the little free library this morning with my intention to put this in the library, but I wasn't able to access the library at the time. It's on the school campus, and there was some activity outside for the kids, so I didn't want to go too close. And also, when I passed by the school, I noticed that it's a middle school, and I just wasn't sure whether or not this book was what I would want to leave in the kiosk if middle school children are being able to access it. Because while this deals with an LGBTQ topic, it is written for a middle grade audience, right? The Coretta Scott King Award honor tells us that this is a middle grade book. This is more of a YA book, because even though one of the characters in here is 10 and so she's a middle grader, I think the story follows the 16-year-old, which makes it more of a YA audience. And there is an LGBTQ representation in this book as well. So I really did think that they would be equal. But I think there are a couple of situations in here that I believe may not be completely right for the 10-year-old audience. So I am going to hold off on this. I'm going to hold off on this. I'm not going to put it in that little free library. Maybe I'll put it in another one. Maybe I'll use this for something else. So I'm still thinking about a book that I can use to replace this with the same kind of characteristics in the little free library that I am talking about. So I need now to find a book that is by a Caribbean author that has Caribbean representation. So it's not just about someone who has a Caribbean background, but writing for a American audience. It is a Caribbean author writing about something that has to do with Caribbean representation. It is appropriate for a middle grade audience, but it includes a lot of diversity. So not necessarily limited to LGBTQ representation, but representing that there are different identities. So in my mind right now, I've been going through some possibilities, and I can't think of a book that comes to mind right now that has all of those things. And so I was thinking, in answer to your question, Chad Watson, have you published any literary material? I'm thinking maybe I just need to write the book that I want to be able to share with a middle grade audience with those characteristics. What do you think about that? Have I published any literary material? I have. And this is, even though this is my book collection, this is not all of my books. So this is not quite my space, but I do have a book. I published a book about 8 or 9 years ago now. It's been a while, and I haven't published anything since, but I should. I wrote a book. It's a collection of short stories. It is called It's Complicated: Short Stories About Long Relationships. It's available on Amazon. If you are on Kindle Unlimited, it is available for you to read. It's a Kindle download, free Kindle download on Kindle Unlimited. And I do have print copies as well. So I will look for a copy. Yeah, my own book is not on the shelves. I do have a copy. Let me show it to you. There's a copy somewhere here. Somewhere here, there should be a copy. No, I can't find a copy of my own book. I can't find a copy of my own book. Okay, I'll come back to it. I'll think about where it is and I'll show it. I'll think about where it is and then I'll go get it and show it to you. But yes, I have a book. It's a collection of short stories, and it does have Caribbean representation because a lot of the stories are interpretations of things that have happened in my life, some things that have happened to me, things that I have seen happen to other people, and I write my own ending to those situations because, sometimes you feel like you want to do something, and sometimes you feel like you want to do something, but you can't do it in real life. But as an author, you could definitely imagine the response to you doing the thing. And so that's what I do with my fiction. I have a few other things. I have a few other writing projects that I need to just work on. But for a while, I haven't been in the physical or mental space to do it. And I've just been thinking that I need to push forward. So thank you so much for the push. You didn't mean to put me on the spot. That's okay. Sometimes I do need to be put on the spot. I'm going to have to go look for my books. I have and I have multiple copies. A lot of the copies are stored in the same place and they're not accessible right now because we're in a little bit of a physical transition. I moved some of my books to another space. I'm working on organizing my home office. And so some of the books are in a storage area for that reason. And I'm trying to think of where. Thank you so much for putting me on the spot. Like it's bad that my book is not on display, right? My book is not on display. It used to be. It used to be. But after just, lots of different iterations of moving the books around on my shelves, I just I just don't know where there's a copy. So my book is self-published. Did I mention that? It's self-published. And so one of the things that I did not like about the book was that the spine is black. And so it doesn't stand out on a shelf if it's spine out. I really like the artwork on the front cover. So I used to display it with the front cover out. But when I kind of ran out of shelf space, then it got turned in. And it's been a while since I've shown my book. Like, yeah, you definitely put me on the spot, but thank you so much for the challenge. I will share a book with you later. Your desire to encourage reading and your personality is why I asked. Also, the amount of books that are behind you. Yeah. So a lot of these books are mine. Some of them are for my husband, who's also a big reader, but we read different kinds of books. So some of the books are exclusively his, like if you could see like some of the mystery kind of books over there, like he's a big Clive Cussler fan, so he has some like Clive Cussler books. He likes to read history and social studies, social kind of stuff. Some of those books are his. A lot of the novels are mine. A lot of the novels are mine. But yeah, you like coloring books? Me too. My daughter loves coloring books, and I love coloring with her. But I also have adult coloring books, and so yeah, we like artwork around here. So one of the things that I do on my TikTok is I talk about journaling or share parts of my journal. And a couple of weeks ago, we're doing a lot of art journaling. So we would create our own artwork and color. So yeah, coloring books are great. What else did I want to tell you about that book? I think we're done talking about these two books, right? So I can put them away. That's the that was the book for today. That was definitely the book for today. If you were on the live yesterday, which we met a little later in the day yesterday, so things got a little chaotic because my daughter was home and she likes to talk with the friends. So we opened this book yesterday. I'm trying to remember if that's true. Yes, I think we opened this in the live yesterday. So this was a gift from Hachette Books. Did I say it correctly this time? Hachette Books sent me this book in this package. And I'm so excited to have this. It is a particularly nasty case by Adam Kay, who is a British author. There we go. That's Adam Kay, an award-winning writer and former non-award-winning doctor. I love that. I love when people write fiction based on their real life experiences. So whether they're real life professions or just whether professions or just personal lives. So yeah, I love, like, a few examples that I can think of are R.F. Kuang, who wrote R.F. Kuang. Let me not say anything wrong. I feel like I have made some mistakes in terms of, yeah, R.F. Kuang. R.F. Kuang wrote Yellowface based on her own experiences on Ivy League campus, I think. And she incorporated a lot of the Ivy League student experience in a novel. And I love that. I am here for that kind of autofiction. I love it. The book Chemistry by Wiki Wang. I loved reading about someone who was a grad student and specifically in a science field. I love that. And that mirrored a lot of the author's personal experience. So when I hear that there's a novel by a doctor about a doctor, tell me where to get the book and I will start reading it. So today we're going to have some reading sprints because I am going to read a few pages of this, hopefully, and I'll be able to tell you my thoughts on it in real time. So in my package yesterday, this was a really cool package too, man. The package came with this notepad, which is a doctor's prescription pad. And this is the name of the doctor character in this book. So Ethan Rose, I think is how that's pronounced. I could be saying it wrong. Ethan Rose from St. Jude's Hospital. And the book also came with a cute little pen. And do I still have it here? It's not here. I took it out, I think, to journal with. But in any case, it came with a pen and this notepad. And because the book is a crime happening in a hospital environment, in some kind of a medical facility, the prescription on the prescription pad says list of murder suspects. And I just love it. It's just so personalized. A particularly nasty case and the author's name and the publisher's name, Little Brown and Company. So Hachette Books sent me this as a complimentary copy, complimentary gift, that's redundant, as a gifted copy. So I want to read it and tell you guys about it and hopefully finish it soon so I can do a review. So we're going to read it today. It is 1:17. I'm going to set a timer and we're going to read together. Hi, my little cozy library is here. My little cozy library is reading for her schoolwork. I won't tell them if you don't tell them. So she's reading professionally, but we are going to be reading, well, I'm going to be reading for fun. So let me know in the comments what you're going to be reading during the live sprint. We're going to start in maybe a minute or two. Thank you so much for subbing, Chad. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to get our reading sprint started in 2 minutes. It is 1:18 and I'm going to start the timer. We're going to do a 20-minute timer because I think I need to make a little progress in the book so I can tell you, first impressions. So I'm going to read for 20 minutes. And generally, my reading pace is not very fast. I'm not a fast reader. I do not speed read. So I'm projecting that I will finish up to chapter 2, which goes up to page 25 in 20 minutes. If I go further, that would be great. but I'm going to see where I can get to in 20 minutes. So I'm going to set a timer which starts at 1:18. So until we get to 1:18, I'm just going to update my reading journal a little bit. I still haven't, because I told you guys about this last week, and I still haven't put in my TBR for September. And if you are just coming across the if you're just coming across the live for the first time and you don't know any of the backstory, again, welcome. Hi, I'm Karen. This is Runwright Reads. Thank you so much for being here. The last couple of weeks have been a little strange for me. And yeah, it's just been a little strange for me. I've been off my schedule, been off my game. I'm just trying to make sure that I do all the things. So in my reading journal, I usually track what I'm reading and why I'm reading it. So I create a TBR table, and on here, I usually write down the things that I want to focus on reading during the month. And when I have accomplished those, or when I've made significant dent in that list, then I'll add other things that I am reading that maybe I just picked up that I hadn't necessarily scheduled at the beginning of the month, because I'm still a huge mood reader. And when a new book comes, I wanna, try out all the new and shiny things. So my TBR is constantly being updated. But at the beginning of the month, I know some of the reading commitments that I have, and so I want to be honoring those. So I'm gonna get the reading sprint started. But I'm also going to try to update my TBR in this video so I can share it with you. So those are some of the things that we're doing today. 15-minute timer. We're actually going to make it a 20-minute timer. So we're starting the 20 minutes. Starts now. Let me know in the comments before you start reading what you're reading, and our 20 minutes starts now. There we go. 20 minutes. See you back at 1:40. And I'm reading this. Sorry, before you start reading, I love reading book dedications, and this one is just so cute. It says, "To Elsa, Anna, and Olaf, for keeping my children quiet while I wrote this." It's so cute. Could have dedicated the book to the children themselves, but dedicated to the characters from Frozen. That's awesome. All right, here we go. I'm going to restart the timer. 20 minutes. 20 minutes starts now. Hey Didi, we are reading. We have about 10 minutes left on the timer. So we're doing a reading sprint. This is what I'm reading. I am at page 14. So I'm thinking I'm going to make my goal of getting to about page 25, maybe even page 35. So 10 more minutes. The God of the Woods, that's Liz Moore, right? I think I have a copy. I haven't read it yet. Add that to my list. We have about 6 minutes left on the timer. Okay. So I'll give you a few seconds if you are in the middle of a page or a paragraph that you need to finish. I'll give you a few seconds. All right, so I just went to pick up another book that this reminded me of. All right, so we are reading this book, A Particularly Nasty Case by Adam Kay. Tell me in the comments, what does that title make you think? And I recognize that titles are quite often puns, because you're meant to think one thing, but then it's about the other thing that probably doesn't come to your mind right away. So particularly nasty case. There's a syringe on the front. Here's this man being injected. This is more than just an injection. The point of the needle goes all the way through him. Or does it? It actually goes under his arm. I don't I guess it goes through him. So if it was just under his arm, then you should see it here where it goes into his, like into the crook between his arm and his torso, but it doesn't, right? It goes all the way through him. So that's, yeah, that's what that is. But because of the medical setting, I'm thinking a particularly nasty case of a medical, what's the word? Like a particularly nasty case of the flu, a particularly nasty case of some medical malady. I don't know what the pun is yet, but here are what the first 25 pages or so are about. So we're reading about this doctor, and he has been away from his job for some time. And the night before he goes back to work, seems like he is particularly stressed. So he goes out looking for a distraction. And I understand that, because I am here doing these daily lives because I need a distraction. So I understand trying to do something that you're looking for. A distraction could be just about anything. You want a distraction to be something that isn't worse than what you want to be distracted from. But quite often, because you are almost desperate when you're looking for a distraction, you are not necessarily making the right or the best decisions. So that's clearly what's happening with this guy. So in the prologue, we see him. Do we know that it's him? No. Prologue, we see someone in a phone booth. So the book is set in England. It is set in London. Is it London? Don't want to assume. He's in a city. He's in a city environment in England. We do know that. The words, the terminology, it's all British. So this person is a male in a phone booth dialing the emergency services. So 999, is that the emergency services in England? 999. So at first they dial 996 because they're trying not to use their fingers. They're definitely trying to do something that they don't want to leave a trace. So 999 is the emergency services. They're dialing, they're getting emergency response, and we're not sure exactly why they don't want to be traced. They don't want, they want to just call and do or say what they want to say and then hang up and leave the area. So they're using this phone booth, which is not something that, we use a lot in this part of the world anymore. And the person calls 999 and says, I want to report a murder, actually two, a double murder. There have been 2 murders and I'm worried there might be another. And then the person tries to hang up. So they don't want to wait around for the operator to ask any follow-up questions. They just want to say what they're saying and then leave. So we don't know who that is in the prologue, but we do know that this is about some emergency. And so this prologue could be at some later point in the book, right? We get a prologue, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's where we're picking up the story from. So in chapter one is entitled All Night Bender. And I like when books have chapter titles, chapter names, as opposed to just chapter 1 and chapter 2. So chapter 1 is All Night Bender. Chapter 2 is Return to Haz, H-O-Z. And at first I was like, what's Haz? Haz is short for hospital, apparently. So we get this doctor who's been away has been away on leave. We know that. And the night before he's scheduled to go back to work, he goes out to a bar. Opening line of this chapter, this wasn't Cheers. Ethan wasn't looking for the kind of bar where everybody knows your name. He wanted the sort of anonymity you'd normally only achieve by soldering off your fingerprints and buying a Bolivian passport on the dark web. Shelf was one of South London's, yes, the book is set in London. Shelf was one of South London's most airless caves. The walls bled sweat. The floor was sticky for what could have been any number of unsavory reasons. And the thudding tech house synchronized with the pounding in his temples. Ethan felt profoundly overdressed from the moment he stumbled in. He was, for example, the only person who seemed to be wearing a t-shirt. He tugged and fussed at it, suddenly conscious of how it clung to his body. A creaking oak tree in a field of daisies. He had university degrees older than most of the boys in here. Nobody looked like they'd managed to spell their own name, let alone know anyone else's. So he is an older man in what seems to be a bar for men. And they're much younger men. The other patrons are much younger, and he's feeling out of place. But it's also a place where he is looking to just kind of disappear. So we see him get approached, and he goes to another location with this person who approaches him. And there is someone has a medical emergency, and he is forced into action that betrays who he is. Not necessarily that he was lying about his identity, but he wasn't trying to make any real lasting connections. He was there to have some fun, get distracted from what he's really worried about, and then move on. But while he's there, while he is in this space, someone has a medical emergency. He has to perform an emergency procedure, and so he outs himself literally. And then it becomes this big thing, and so he goes to work the next morning feeling even more stressed than he did when he went out to this bar, because now he has also sacrificed the night of sleep before he goes back to work, dealing with this thing that he got kind of roped into. That's very interesting as a starter. What I do not like about this whole thing is that whole chapter that I just summarized. Is interesting for the things that I just mentioned, but there are also some things that are in here that are graphic. These graphic descriptions in the first few pages of a book, I've had my fill of that. I have. And I'm not looking for books to match my prudish inclinations. I'm not looking for that. I can read past graphic descriptions and not be completely bothered. But when I don't yet know the character and you have me looking at him with his body unclothed, and you're giving me just a whole slew of unclothed men to look at, like, why am I here? Why am I here? Why do these books have these very strange first chapters? That's just my question. Because there is about half of these 14 pages. No, so starts on page 5, goes to page 14. So half of these 10 pages, about 5 of these pages were unnecessary descriptions that I did not need. I don't think you have to give me graphic descriptions for the book to be immersive, for the book to be visual. I can visualize someone being stressed about going back to work and doing extreme things without the visuals that were contained in here. So I'm just going to say that, and I'm not going to focus anymore on those chapters. So just like the book that we read together a couple of days ago, My Train Leaves at 3 by Natalie Guerrero, the book is really interesting about this young woman who is at a crossroads in her life where she's reeling from a loss and she's trying to figure out where to go next, and she's being buffeted by all these different competing requests for her time and her attention, and none of those really push her to meeting her potential. Like, everything is just kind of forcing her to deal with the right now, and she can't focus on what she actually needs to do to move her life forward. But the book starts with this graphic encounter with this man, even though this book is about a woman. And I'm saying all of that. I should show. Do I have the book here? I don't think so, because I said, yeah, I don't have it with me. But I didn't like that the book focuses on a man when the book is about a woman. This book is about a doctor. Book is about a doctor set in a hospital. Why does the first chapter of the book have to be set in a bar or in an establishment like what this was? So I'm going to move forward. I'm not going to think about chapter 1. Chapter 2, which was the return to the hospital, was much more interesting to me. So in chapter 2, we have Ethan. Ethan is the main character. He's a doctor. He is returning to his job at the hospital, and we see him. He used to have an office, used to have some kind of personal space within the hospital facility, and now he has returned to find that a woman who he does not necessarily enjoy spending time with is now sharing his office, and her assistant or secretary or someone who works with her, who can't stand him and the feelings mutual, now is in his personal space. And so he has returned to a really tense environment. Really tense environment. And the little banter, the back and forth, the little biting comments when he walks in, and the young woman, the assistant, her name is Nina. Yeah, just what she says to him, like, she hasn't seen him in months. And he walks in and there's no "welcome back, Ethan, we're so happy that you're back," whatever she says, Ethan, as though he'd only been gone for a few minutes as opposed to 4 months. So here we get how long he's actually been there. She doesn't use his surname. She doesn't address him as a doctor. There's no professional recognition. It's just, Ethan, oh, you're back. And he says, on paper, Ethan and Nina should have got on. They were both North London Jews of a similar specification, but Ethan could have been her babysitter. And yeah, in any case, she's just like back to work. These things all need to be attended to. They've been here for months, and he's like, yeah, I've been off for months. And she said, well, you're back now, aren't you? And his response, anything else, Nina? Somebody coming to pull out my toenails? A day trip to Pyongyang? So, just like little banter, little references to things. I like that. I just like that. I like how immediately we're back in this hospital environment and we're centered on the like the day-to-day of being in an office situation, and seeing some of the urgency with what they do for their job. The book I'm talking about is this one, A Particularly Nasty Case by Adam Kay. Yeah, so this for me would be a stronger first chapter. I don't need the other stuff, at least not all the graphics of the other stuff. If you want to pull me into this character's life, give me, because the book is about his professional life. And yeah, in any case, I like that. So then we move to so he goes out because he no longer has an office refuge. So he goes outside, goes up on the roof to get a little breather, and he meets someone there. And I like the interaction that he has with this man that he meets. Man's name is Cole. And just a little banter. The book is like really smart with the banter that is exchanged between characters. We see Ethan, and I don't know if we would agree on what the visual of him is, because we're getting little snippets of physical description as well as a character description as the book progresses. So now that we're up on the roof and we are seeing Ethan in conversation with Cole, it's just really, really good. So let me tell you what he says. I'll just read it because it's really good. It's really good writing. Just, if I had stopped reading in the first chapter, that was a little too much for me, then I would have missed out on all of this. Here we go. He thought about Cirque du Soleil. Is that how you pronounce that? He thought about Cirque du Soleil himself off the edge half a dozen times before he was persuaded to take a few months' leave. More information. He didn't leave on his own. He was persuaded to go off and leave for 4 months, right? So he's up on the roof thinking about jumping. How it might feel to tumble toward the ground. The air rushing through him as the tarmac hurtled closer. The sound he'd make. The shape he'd make as he hit. But everyone thought about jumping, didn't they? I could never do it myself. Ethan whipped around, his shoes scraping on the asphalt, and saw a young man. So, another young man. Think of the mess. You'd ruin a street cleaner's day. Plus, you might squish someone. Punctuation marks. And just mid-20s, Northern Manchester. I like that. Like, there are no wasted words in the description, like to say, oh, this man was mid-20s, or that he was from Northern Manchester. It's just these phrases, period. Mid-20s, period. Northern, period. Manchester? Question mark. Plenty of people I'd be happy to squish here, said Ethan. Fancy a shove then? Oh, I like that. And then there is a a reference back to chapter 1 and the shelf bar that he had gone into. The blonde blur walked past Ethan and peered over the edge. Ethan admired the anatomical diagram of back muscles fighting through his polo shirt and the way his trousers hugged his glutei. He'd clean up in shelf. So if he had been in there, he would have, this person that he's seeing now would have fit in a lot better than Ethan had. A bit on the nose, though, said Ethan, topping yourself at St. Jude's. I'm not sure she'd approve, the patron saint of lost causes. She, laughed the man. His eyes were bright and blue, with a hint of creases at the edges. Pretty sure Jude was a bloke. Brother of Jesus? And then they go into like a little bit of a religious discussion. And Ethan says, heavily lapsed Jew. And the man pointed both of his thumbs at himself. Catholic primary school. Who'd want to be a member of a group whose symbol was a bloke nailed to 2 pieces of wood? Replied Ethan, stealing a George Carlin line and hoping the guy wouldn't notice. And what I like about that, so that's on the bottom of this page, and on the reverse page at the end of this section, the guy says, always good to meet another Carlin fan. So a lot of conversation and exchange happen, and he doesn't respond, or he doesn't acknowledge the fact that he knows where the quote that someone is saying comes from until he's leaving, and he corrects him about something that he's saying. He said, oh yeah, always good to meet another Carlin fan. And it's just like this connection that you can tell is like the setup for something else. I really like that chapter. I really like the interaction. I like banter. I like wit. I love very intelligent discourse between people. That is what will pull me into a book, not a graphic physical encounter. And it doesn't matter what the graphical physical encounter is, whether it is hostile or loving. I need to know who the people are. I need to be introduced to the people. I need to see them on a social level. I want to socialize before we become intimate. I don't want to first see them unclothed. Is that prudish? So again, another book where I would take about 3 or 4 of these pages and just kind of rip them out. So it's hard for me. It's hard for me to recommend books that do that. Because I know that there were people who I would recommend this book to, who would enjoy chapter 2, but they wouldn't get to chapter 2 because they wouldn't read past chapter 1. And so situations like that make it a little difficult for me to recommend a book without a caveat. And so that's why sometimes when I want to review books, I have to make long videos. If I'm going to review a book, to make a long video, because I first have to sell the book on chapter 2 and beyond, and then let you know, if you pick it up, here's what chapter 1 is going to include that you may not like. This book was a gift from Little Brown and Company, Hachette Books. And it reminded me, when I finished reading the chapter, I got up to go get this one because it reminded me of this book, which was a gift from Penguin Random House a few months ago. Leave It Up to You by Jinwoo Chong. Also about a gay man. This time, so in this one, the main character is a gay man who's a doctor. In this one, the main character is a gay man who is a patient. And in here, this one is set in London. This one is set in New York and New Jersey. And in this one, we met this man when he was in a coma. And he had been in a coma for a long time, almost 2 years. And we get to see him recover and blending the 2 parts of his life, the before the coma and after. And There were some very strong sexual references in here as well. This was probably one of the first books that I talked about on a live where I talked about wanting to rip out the first few pages. Yeah, like I couldn't read this book. I couldn't read this book to you because the language on the first couple of pages was just like, what is going on? But because the publishers had sent it to me, I wanted to read it so I could discuss it. And after those few pages, when I was able to really get to know the character, there's a lot about this book that I appreciated and enjoyed. But it's hard for me to recommend it to a wide audience because the first few pages, the first chapter, just has these graphic message, this graphic description. So if you have read this and you liked it, I'm going to recommend that you check this one out because you may like it too. I think that this is going to be a very interesting book. I've never read anything that was a crime or a detective set in a medical facility. So because the main character is a doctor and the author is a doctor, I'm intrigued, so I will read more of this next time and I'll share it with you. So, should I read more? Should I read more today? Should we read more today? Yeah, all right. So we're going to have another reading sprint. If you are here for the reading sprints, let's do 15 minutes. It's 2:05, 2:06 actually. No, 2:07. The time just changed. 2:07 Eastern Standard Time. I'm in New York City. Leave me a note in the comments. Let me know where you are joining from. What's your time zone? Because it's easy for me to read another 15 minutes. It might not be for you, but we're going to set a timer for 15 minutes. We're going to get to 2:22. Maybe by the time I start this, it will be 2:23. Let's see. We're doing 15 minutes. All right. So we are going to read for 15 more minutes. I'm going to give this book another 15 minutes. I'll be able to tell you more of my thoughts. Hopefully, the more I get into the book, the more I know about Ethan. And I'm thinking I'm going to see more of Cole, that I'm going to like even more of this book. The next chapter is entitled WhatsApp Doc. Oh, that's so cool, like I told you. I think this book is really smart. I think the book is really smart. A little pun. WhatsApp Doc versus What's Up Doc, Bugs Bunny. Why they do this to me? Like it's a personal affront that the first chapter of the book has the setting that it does. I'm not. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tape that part of the book shut. I'm going to tape up chapter 1 and pretend that it doesn't exist. All right. It's 2:08. It's 2:08. I'm going to start the 15-minute timer now. And so we're going to read until 2:23 thereabouts. So let me know where you are, what your time zone is, and what book you're reading. That would be great. So 15 minutes starts now. And I'm going to continue reading this one so I can tell you about the WhatsApp Doc. Hey, Bernie in Queens, New York. I'm also in Queens, New York. I knew that. But thank you for being here. My local bookish friend. Thank you, Eric. Okay. Six minutes. Okay, time's up. I'm just going to finish reading my chapter. Okay. Oh no. Um, oh. Okay. So the book just got that much more interesting. Thank you so much for your messages. Brown Girl Reading is in France, and she says it is 8:24 and now 8:27 in France. 8:27 p.m. Okay. It is, and my cozy little library is reading for school classes. I knew that. I love it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everyone who has joined. I'm reading A Particularly Nasty Case by Adam Kay, who's a medical doctor. And we're reading about a medical doctor who has been on, seems like some kind of suspension for about 4 months because of his involvement in a case where someone didn't receive the proper treatment and they had some medical challenges. You saw my reaction when I was reading. I really enjoyed this chapter. Actually, I think I read about 2 chapters. I finished a little section on I finished chapter 4. So I'm up to page 48. So I think that's probably the limit of where I would discuss the book, because when I read a book, I don't want to know too much about the book going in. So I definitely want to allow other potential readers to have the same experiences. So because you're here, I'll tell you my thoughts on what's happened so far. And I will not go past what it says. Yeah, so what I just found out in chapter 4, what I just found out in chapter 4 is not mentioned anywhere in the synopsis, so I will not tell you. I'm a little surprised by that, because sometimes, thank you, Brown Girl Reading is reading The God of the Woods, because she says it's a slog. She has to finish it for her book club on Saturday, but she has to leave now because she has to go make dinner. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, Brown Girl Reading. Really enjoy your content. So thank you so much for being here and sharing this time with us. Really appreciate your contributions. For everyone who is here, just a little bit of what I learned in this section, because I also have to log off very soon. Yeah. I thought I could tell you the details, because quite often when I read a book synopsis, what I read in the first 50 pages is covered in the synopsis. This time, what I just learned in this chapter is not. So I really appreciate that. So another star being added back to the rating for this book, that the synopsis doesn't spoil the experience of reading the book. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that. we're learning more and more and more about this doctor, and coming back from a suspension, and having, well, having to be kind of chaperoned. He's being shadowed by other physicians because they need to know that they're able to trust him with patient care before they just give him all the privileges that he had before his time off. And so in this section, we're learning about what happened. We get a little bit of a mixed media in this book. So we have the traditional narrative. We also have like snippets of email messages. So this is a email exchange. And then as we're getting a little bit more into what happened in the hospital environment, these are notes from some kind of a tribunal that was set up to discuss what had happened that led to this doctor's suspension. And so I like that we're getting thoughts, narrative, traditional narrative, but also documentary evidence of what happened, separate and apart from anyone's perspective. Just, these are just the facts. This is what happened. We even got, right after that, I think we got a newspaper article that flashed back to some prior time that told us some of the things that this doctor was dealing with. I really like that. I really like that. So this is a good read. This part of the book is a good read. I am going to not mention my reaction to chapter 1 again, but I just think if the book had started in chapter 2 and continued from there, that it would have been a stronger case for me, a stronger book for me to recommend. But throughout, I can't do that. I couldn't do that. I couldn't take out chapter 1. Like, I couldn't rip out chapter 1 and then give this book to someone else, because things that happen in chapter 1 are being referred to as we go further in the book. It felt a little bit like a throwaway, but it's not, because it is being tied back to what's happening in later chapters. So I'm really liking the reading. Chapter 2 to chapter 4. Chapter 2 to chapter 4 have been really strong. The writing is strong, very intelligent discourse, and the banter is just really witty and inviting in some places, and off-putting when it's supposed to be. And I like that. I like the discussion of the medical background and the medical backdrop. I'm liking that. So yeah, I'm so happy that the publishers offered me this book, and I will continue reading it and hopefully do a full review, full video review at some point. But I do have a few other books that I'm that I'm in that same process with. So that review may be a few days in coming, but hopefully I'll start making some more traditional content for the channel here soon. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to have to wrap up soon because, number one, my phone needs to be charged. I've been on it for all day. Went out for a walk, went to the little free library that I went to yesterday, where I picked up this book and intended to drop off this book today, and didn't get a chance to because two things: I wasn't able to access the library. I think I could have, but I didn't want to put myself in a situation where someone would have said, no, you can't be here at this time. And in any case, I didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable. And then I also rethought leaving this book in that kiosk. So we are going to return to talking about this in an upcoming video or live. So more on that later. Read some pages from here, read some chapters from here. And so, yeah. Thank you so much. Also chatted a little bit about this one. So if you haven't heard anything about this one, I have spoken about this. I think I did a review in a video that I'd done a few months ago. I was doing I was doing some longer videos where I would read like 2 or 3 books that the publishers had sent me and discussing them in more long form content. So if you're interested in hearing more of my thoughts on this one, you could definitely look up this title on my channel, and you'll see where I did a vlog style discussion, I think, where I read this book. So I'm gonna sign off, and then I'm gonna go update my reading journal, and hopefully we'll be back here tomorrow for another lunchtime live, and I'll be able to show you a little bit of my updated reading journal because I need to spend some time on it. So thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your company. If you're watching this as a playback, let me know what about the video you liked, and we will see each other in an upcoming video, hopefully tomorrow. And if I can't always update the community tab before I come on here. So if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel, turn on your notifications so that when I go live, you will be notified and you'll know to join me and be over here, because we always have books coming in and we always have books to read and discuss. So whatever happens in the live, and sometimes it's planned and sometimes it's spontaneous, but whatever happens in the live, there's always going to be a bookish discussion. So I hope you'll join me for it. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already, given the video a thumbs up so it will boost the engagement and be recommended to other subscribers, and maybe even shared with people who haven't yet subscribed, and they'll know to come. So thank you so much for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your day or night, wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. Happy reading. Bye. Let's get a little thumbnail. Bye, guys.